My name is Talia, and I am 18 years old. I stood alone on that graduation stage, scanning the crowd for my parents' faces, but finding only empty seats. While I delivered my valedictorian speech, they were at the nail salon with my sister Amelia for her pedicure appointment. The crushing weight of that realization nearly broke me, but I refused to cry. Instead, I made a decision that would change everything. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and stay until the end to see how I finally found my voice after years of silence. Growing up in our spacious suburban home in Connecticut, I always felt like an afterthought in my own family. My father, John, was a successful corporate attorney who worked long hours at his prestigious law firm in the city. He was a tall, imposing man with salt and pepper hair who commanded respect wherever he went. My mother, Diana, was an interior designer. With her own small but exclusive clientele, she was always impeccably dressed, her blonde hair perfectly styled, and our home looked like it belonged in a magazine spread. Then there was my sister Amelia, younger than me by just 2 years. From the moment she was born, it seemed like the entire family revolved around her. She had my mother's delicate features and my father's confidence. Even at 16, she moved through life with an ease I could never achieve despite all my academic accomplishments. Our house was a showcase of my mother's talent with 5 bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and a backyard with a swimming pool that we hardly used because Amelia had swim practice at the country club pool instead. My room was at the far end of the hallway, painted a neutral beige that my mother had chosen. Amelia's room was directly across from my parents', painted a custom shade of lavender with a window seat and fairy lights strung across the ceiling. The favoritism started small. When Amelia was a baby, my parents would rush to her at the slightest whimper while telling me to wait if I needed something. As we grew, the differences became more pronounced. Amelia was enrolled in expensive ballet classes at age 4. She took piano lessons from a renowned instructor who had once played at Carnegie Hall. Her artwork from her private art tutor was framed and displayed prominently in our living room. My parents attended every recital, every performance, every art show. Meanwhile, I learned early that I was expected to handle things on my own. I remember my 6th grade science fair project staying up late to finish my display on photosynthesis. I asked my dad to help me print some color photos at his office, but he was too busy helping Amelia practice for her dance recital. Mom was making Amelia's costume by hand, so she couldn't help either. I ended up using markers to draw my own illustrations. When it came to school activities, the pattern continued. If Amelia had a performance at the same time as one of my academic competitions, there was never any question about which event my parents would attend. I got used to seeing other parents cheering for their children, while mine were absent. The teachers eventually stopped asking where my parents were. I would just smile and say they were busy with work. I adapted by becoming fiercely independent. By 3rd grade, I was packing my own lunch and walking to the bus stop alone. By middle school, I was cooking simple meals for myself when my parents took Amelia to her evening activities. I taught myself to set an alarm, do my homework without reminders, and handle my own school paperwork. While other parents were helping with college applications, I researched schools and filled out forms on my own. The differences in how we were treated became painfully obvious during birthdays and holidays. Amelia's birthdays were elaborate affairs, with professionally decorated cakes, dozens of guests, and piles of presents. For my 16th birthday, my parents forgot until the day of then, hastily bought a grocery store cake and a gift card. That same year, they threw Amelia a surprise 14th birthday party with a hired DJ and catering. Christmas mornings told the same story. Amelia would receive thoughtful, expensive gifts that showed my parents had been paying attention to her interests all year. I would receive practical items like clothes or school supplies, often still in the store bag, as if purchased at the last minute. By sophomore year, I had started tutoring other students to earn my own money. I saved up to buy the books I wanted to read and the clothes I hoped might make me more visible to my parents. Nothing worked. Their eyes slid past me to find Amelia always Amelia. Perhaps the most painful memory was when I was 12 and came down with strep throat during Amelia's dance competition in a neighboring state. I called my parents from home where I was running a high fever, but they said they couldn't leave because Amelia needed them. Our elderly neighbor ended up taking me to urgent care and staying with me until I was treated. My parents didn't come home until late the next day, bringing Amelia a celebration dinner for her second-place trophy, but nothing for me. That was the day I realized that in order to survive in my family, I needed to stop expecting anything from my parents. Instead, I poured myself into my schoolwork, the one area where I could excel without needing their support. Little did I know that even my greatest academic achievement would not be enough to shift their attention my way. School became my sanctuary, the one place where my efforts were recognized and my achievements celebrated. While my parents' attention was focused on Amelia, I found validation in the approving nods of my teachers and the respect of my peers. I threw myself into every academic pursuit with a determination born of necessity. Each morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. to study before school. I joined the debate team, the math club, the science olympiad, and the student council. I volunteered as a peer tutor during lunch periods and stayed late after school to participate in academic competitions. My teachers often commented on my unusual level of commitment, but few understood the void I was trying to fill. By junior year, I had a perfect 4.0 GPA and was taking every advanced placement course offered at my school. I spent weekends preparing for the SAT, taking practice tests in the quiet of the public library, since home was usually filled with the sound of Amelia's friends or her music practice. When the results came back, I had scored in the 99th percentile, a fact that earned me a quick congratulations from my father before he turned back to his newspaper. My senior year brought even more academic success. I was accepted early decision to Princeton with a substantial scholarship. The acceptance letter arrived on a Thursday, and I waited until dinner to share the news, hoping for at least a moment of recognition. Dad. Mom, I got into Princeton with a scholarship, I announced during a rare dinner when we were all present. My mother looked up briefly. That's nice, honey. Pass the salt, please. My father nodded. Good job. Those student loans are no joke these days. The conversation immediately shifted to Amelia's upcoming audition for the spring musical at school. She was trying out for the lead role, and my parents spent the rest of dinner discussing her costume options and rehearsal schedule. My Princeton acceptance was never mentioned again. 2 weeks later, Amelia got the lead in the school production of West Side Maria. My parents took her out to a celebration dinner at an expensive restaurant downtown. I wasn't invited because I had a student council meeting that night, but I doubt they would have postponed their celebration even if I had been free. When the principal called to inform me that I had been named valedictorian of my graduating class, I was alone in the house. I sat on the kitchen stool, phone in hand, smiling at the empty room. I should have known better than to expect a different reaction when I shared this news with my parents. That evening, I waited until everyone was home. Dad was in his favorite armchair reviewing legal briefs. Mom was scrolling through her phone, probably looking at interior design ideas. Amelia was texting her friends about weekend plans. I have some news, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I was named valedictorian. Mom looked up briefly. That's wonderful, sweetie. Such a smart girl. Dad nodded without looking away from his papers. Good for you, Talia. Amelia barely glanced up from her phone. Cool. Hey, Mom, Cassidy invited me to her lake house this weekend. Can I go? And just like that, my moment was over. The weeks leading up to graduation were filled with preparation for my speech. I spent hours in the school library drafting and redrafting what I wanted to say. I wanted to make it meaningful, to perhaps finally make my parents proud. I practiced in front of my bedroom mirror night after night, imagining their faces in the audience finally seeing me. The speech I prepared was about perseverance and finding strength within yourself. It was about setting goals and working hard to achieve them despite obstacles. Looking back, I realized I was really talking about my own journey, though. I had disguised it as general advice for my classmates. Each night before bed, I would practice the speech once more, tweaking phrases and adjusting my delivery. I timed myself to make sure I stayed within the 5-minute limit. I even recorded myself on my phone so I could analyze my performance. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted just once for my parents to look at me the way they looked at Amelia. The night before graduation, I was in my room making final adjustments to my speech when I overheard my parents talking in the hallway. Amelia's appointment at the nail salon got moved to 2 p.m. tomorrow, my mother was saying. The only time they could fit her in before the weekend. But isn't Talia's speech at 2? My father asked, his voice uncertain. There was a pause. Yes, but you know how important this is to Amelia? She needs to look perfect for her audition for the summer theater program on Sunday. Besides, Talia's just going to talk about studying and grades. We already know what she'll say. I guess you're right, my father agreed. Amelia really needs our support for this audition. It's a big opportunity. I sat frozen on my bed, the carefully printed speech trembling in my hands. In that moment, something inside me broke and was reforged into something stronger, something that would no longer bend and accommodate their neglect. If they couldn't be bothered to hear the speech I had prepared, perhaps they deserved to hear a different one entirely. Graduation day dawned bright and clear, a perfect June morning that seemed to mock the storm brewing inside me. I woke early, having barely slept, and laid out my graduation robe and cap on my bed. Beneath them, I placed my valedictorian medal and the speech I had worked so hard to perfect. As I stared at these symbols of achievement, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Today would be different. Today, one way or another, I would be heard. Downstairs, the household was already in chaos, but not because of graduation. Amelia was having a meltdown at the breakfast table. "Mom, they cannot reschedule again. Brittany and Taylor already got their appointments yesterday. I need my toes done before Cassidy's pool party tomorrow, and I need them perfect for my audition Sunday." My mother was on her phone, her breakfast untouched, as she tried to resolve the crisis. "I know, sweetie. Let me see what I can do." I poured myself a bowl of cereal and sat down quietly. My father walked in already dressed in a suit for the ceremony, though I noted he had chosen his less formal one, the kind he wore to less important client meetings. "Are we all set for today?" he asked no one in particular. The nail salon called Mom said, ignoring me completely. They had to move Amelia's appointment to 1:30 instead of noon. That's going to be tight with Talia's thing at 2, my thing. My valedictorian speech at my high school graduation had been reduced to a thing. "Can't they do it earlier?" Dad asked, checking his watch. "Or tomorrow," Amelia slammed her hand on the table. "Dad, tomorrow is the pool party my feet will be showing in sandals, and Sunday is my audition. You know how important this is." I cleared my throat. "Actually, the ceremony starts at 1:30. My speech will probably be around 2:15. 3 sets of eyes turned to me, as if just noticing I was there. "See," Mom said, turning back to Amelia, "we might still make it work. We can leave right after Talia's speech and get you to your appointment." A small spark of hope flickered in my chest. So they were planning to attend at least for my speech. But Mom, Amelia whined, "It's all the way across town, and you know how they always run late. If we wait for her speech, I might not get in at all." The hope died as quickly as it had appeared. I stood up from the table, my cereal half eaten, and walked back upstairs without another word. They barely noticed my departure, still focused on solving Amelia's nail crisis. In my room, I looked at myself in the mirror. The girl who stared back had dark circles under her eyes, but a new determination in her gaze. I carefully applied my makeup, styled my hair, and put on the simple dress I had bought myself for the occasion. Over it, I draped the graduation gown, secured my cap, and pinned on my valedictorian medal. When I came back downstairs, my parents and Amelia were still in deep discussion about the scheduling conflict. "I should probably head to school early," I said, interrupting them. "They want the graduates there an hour before the ceremony." Dad looked up. "Already? Do you need a ride?" Before I could answer, Mom's phone rang. She answered immediately. "Yes, this is Diana. A nail appointment. Today, you can fit her in at noon." He finally looked at me. "Oh, that's perfect. Well, be right there." She hung up, beaming triumphantly. "Problem solved. They had a cancellation. If we go now, Amelia can get her pedicure before Talia's graduation." Amelia clapped her hands. "Perfect. Let me get my purse." Dad looked relieved. "Wonderful. So, Talia, do you want us to drop you at school on the way?" I stared at them, momentarily speechless. They were planning to take Amelia to her nail appointment before my graduation, not after. They weren't concerned about missing my speech at all. "No," I said finally, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I can take the bus. Are you sure Mom asked already, gathering her things? We can drop you if it's on the way." "It's not on the way," I replied. "The nail salon is in the opposite direction from school." "Oh, right," she said, clearly having never paid attention to such details before. "Well, we'll see you there. Good luck with your speech." I watched them bustle around, getting ready to leave, not one of them noticing the medal on my chest or the folded speech in my hand. As they headed out the door, Amelia turned back. "Make sure you save us seats in the front, okay?" The door closed behind them, and I was alone again, as I had been for most of my life. I took the bus to school, watching familiar landmarks pass by my window. As I approached the school, I saw families arriving together, parents helping to straighten caps and taking photos. I walked past them all, head held high, into the building where teachers and staff were organizing the graduates. Throughout the next hour, I sent several text messages to my parents, asking where they were and reminding them about the ceremony start time. None were answered. At one point I called, but the call went straight to voicemail. By the time we graduates began filing into the auditorium, I had accepted the truth. They weren't coming, at least not for the beginning. Perhaps they would slip in late after Amelia's precious pedicure was complete. I took my place at the front of the line, the position reserved for the valedictorian, and led my classmates into the packed auditorium. From the stage, I scanned the crowd, still hoping to see them. The seats I had asked another student to reserve remained empty. As the principal began his welcome speech, I felt a strange sense of clarity wash over me. I looked down at the speech in my hands, the one I had worked so hard to perfect, and knew I would not be delivering those words today. When Principal Matthews finally called my name, introducing me as the valedictorian with the highest GPA in school history, I rose from my seat and walked to the podium. The applause was enthusiastic, but all I could hear was the absence of the three people who should have been cheering the loudest. I placed my carefully typed speech on the podium, looked out at the sea of faces, and made my decision. With a deliberate movement, I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. Today, I would speak my truth. The auditorium fell silent as I stood at the podium, the weight of hundreds of eyes upon me. My heart pounded in my chest, but for once, the anxiety wasn't from fear of public speaking. It was from the knowledge that what I was about to do would change everything. Good afternoon, faculty families and fellow graduates. I began, my voice surprisingly steady. My name is Talia Williams, and I am your valedictorian. A round of applause followed, and I used those seconds to scan the audience once more. The three empty seats in the front row seemed to scream their accusation. They still weren't here. I had a speech prepared. I continued once the clapping died down. A nice, appropriate speech about perseverance and future success, about working hard and achieving your dreams. I pulled the folded paper from my pocket and held it up for everyone to see. But I won't be giving that speech today. A murmur rippled through the crowd. On stage, I could see Principal Matthews shift uncomfortably in his seat. Mrs. Rodriguez, my AP English teacher, leaned forward with a concerned expression. Instead, I want to talk about what it's really like to persevere. Not in the abstract motivational poster way, but in the raw, painful reality that some of us live every day. I took a deep breath. For 18 years, I have been invisible in my own home. While my sister gets celebrated for every small achievement, my accomplishments have gone unacknowledged. When I won the state science fair in 9th grade, my parents forgot to pick me up from the event. When I scored perfect on my SATs, they barely looked up from their phones. And today, on what should be one of the most important days of my life, they chose to take my sister for a pedicure instead of watching me speak. Gasps echoed through the auditorium. I saw shocked expressions, parents exchanging glances, and teachers looking uncomfortable. But I had started now and I couldn't stop. For most of my life, I believed there was something wrong with me, something that made me unworthy of the love and attention my sister received so abundantly. I tried everything to earn their notice. I got perfect grades, I joined every club, I won every competition. I never caused trouble. I was the model daughter in every way except the one that mattered. I wasn't her. My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed on. I stand before you today not because of family support, but despite its absence. Every achievement that brought me to this podium came from my own determination, my own late nights studying alone, my own efforts to get myself to school events when no one would drive me, my own job tutoring to pay for graduation announcements that my parents forgot to order. I looked around the room, making eye contact with fellow students who had known pieces of my story over the years. For 22 years, I have lived with this inequality. 22 years of forgotten birthdays while my sisters were catered events. 22 years of being told I was fine on my own because I was so mature while she needed their constant presence. 22 years of being expected to understand, to accept, to never complain. From the corner of my eye, I noticed movement at the back of the auditorium. My parents and Amelia had finally arrived, slipping in through the door. They stood frozen in the aisle, listening to my words. I felt a surge of emotion, but continued speaking. This isn't just my story. Some of you sitting here today know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what it's like to be the less favored child, the one who is expected to understand, to make do with less love, less attention, less support. You know the ache of watching your sibling receive what you desperately need, but have learned not to ask for. I see you. I am you. Tears glistened in the eyes of several audience members. One mother in the third row was openly crying. I noticed a father pull his son closer in an unexpected embrace. But here's what I want you all to know: I did it anyway. Despite being told through actions and inattention that I didn't matter as much, I excelled. Despite the absence of support that others take for granted, I am standing here today as your valedictorian. My voice grew stronger. The lesson I want to share isn't that hard work overcomes all obstacles. It's that your value isn't determined by how others treat you, even those who should love you most. It's that you can survive being the afterthought, the second choice, the one who is expected to understand why someone else always comes first. I could see my mother looking horrified, my father pale and shaken. Amelia had her hand over her mouth. But I wasn't speaking for them anymore. I was speaking for myself, and for anyone else who had ever felt invisible in their own family. Today, I am rejecting the role I was assigned. I am refusing to be the understanding one who accepts less. I am standing here and demanding to be seen not just for my achievements, but for my pain as well. The auditorium was completely silent now, hanging on my every word. To those of you who see yourselves in my story, I want you to know that your feelings are valid. The pain of being overlooked is real. The longing to be valued equally is legitimate. You are not wrong for wanting what others receive so freely, and your worth is not determined by their failure to see it. I straightened my shoulders and lifted my chin. In a few months, I will leave for Princeton University on a full scholarship that I researched and applied for on my own. I will build a new life where I am valued for who I am. And I will carry with me the knowledge that I did this myself, that my success is entirely my own. I paused, looking directly at my parents, who remained frozen at the back of the room. Some of you may think I'm being unfair or disrespectful. You may believe that family matters should remain private. But after 22 years of silence, I have earned the right to speak my truth. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do for yourself is to stop accepting disrespect from others, even when those others are your family. I could see Principal Matthews looking at his watch, signaling that my time was nearly up. I nodded slightly to acknowledge him. To my fellow graduates, my wish for you is not just success, but recognition. Not just achievement, but appreciation. May you find or create the support systems that nurture you as you deserve to be nurtured. May you never accept being less than in the eyes of those who matter to you. And may you have the courage to speak your truth, even when it's difficult, even when it's unwelcome. I stepped back from the podium, ready to conclude. Thank you for listening to the speech I needed to give rather than the one I was expected to deliver. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then from somewhere in the middle of the auditorium, a person began to clap. Another joined, and another, until the entire room erupted in thunderous applause. Students stood, then parents, then teachers, until everyone was on their feet. Through my tears, I could see many of them crying too, moved by words that had come not from my prepared text, but from my heart. As I returned to my seat, I caught a glimpse of my parents and Amelia slipping out of the back door. Even now, they were running away rather than facing the truth. But for once, their absence didn't diminish me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. We received our diplomas, moved our tassels from right to left, and tossed our caps into the air. Throughout it all, I felt strangely detached, as if watching myself from a distance. The enormity of what I had done hadn't fully registered yet, but I knew there would be consequences once I left the safety of the auditorium. As the ceremony ended and families began reuniting with their graduates, I was surrounded by classmates and teachers offering congratulations and support. "Talia, that was the most powerful speech I've ever heard," said Mrs. Rodriguez, my English teacher, pulling me into a hug. "I always knew you were strong, but I had no idea how much you were carrying." Several classmates approached me with tears in their eyes. Some shared snippets of their own family struggles, whispering thank you for putting into words what they felt but couldn't express. Even Principal Matthews, who had looked so uncomfortable during my speech, came to speak with me. "That wasn't the speech we expected, Ms. Williams," he said gravely. But then his expression softened. "But perhaps it was the speech we needed to hear. You showed tremendous courage up there." I thanked him, surprised by his support. As the crowd began to thin, my phone buzzed with a text message from my mother. "We are waiting by the car. Come immediately." The butterflies in my stomach turned to lead. This was the moment of reckoning. I gathered my things and made my way outside, walking slowly across the campus, where I had spent 4 years building a life separate from my family. In the parking lot, I spotted our black SUV parked at the far end. As I approached, I could see Amelia sitting in the back seat, her face streaked with tears. My mother stood by the passenger door, arms crossed, her expression thunderous. My father leaned against the hood, looking anywhere but at me. "How dare you?" my mother hissed as soon as I was within earshot. "How dare you humiliate this family in front of everyone we know?" I stayed calm, though my heart was racing. I only spoke the truth. "The truth," she scoffed. "You made us sound like monsters after everything we've done for you." "Done for me," I interrupted, surprised by my own boldness. "What exactly have you done for me, Mom? When was the last time you attended anything important to me? When have you ever put my needs before Amelia's?" "That's not fair," she exclaimed. "Amelia needed—" "Stop," my father said suddenly, his voice quiet but firm. "Just stop, Diana." My mother turned to him in shock. "John, you can't possibly be taking her side after that performance." My father finally looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. His eyes were red-rimmed. "She didn't give a performance, Diana. She told the truth. Our truth." Amelia chose that moment to get out of the car, her perfect pedicure visible in her sandals, her face blotchy from crying. "Is it true?" she asked me, her voice small. "Have you always felt this way?" "Yes," I said simply. "Always." "Why didn't you ever say anything?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Why did you just let it happen?" I looked at her incredulously. "Would you have listened? Would any of you have listened?" People were starting to notice our confrontation. Other families leaving the graduation ceremony slowed down, watching with undisguised curiosity. My mother's face flushed with embarrassment. "Get in the car, all of you," she ordered. "We're not doing this here." "Actually," I said, standing my ground, "I'm not going home with you. I've already arranged to stay with Jasmine and her family tonight." Jasmine Martin was my closest friend, one of the few people who knew the full extent of my family's situation. "Don't be ridiculous," my mother snapped. "Of course you're coming home. Where else would you go?" "I literally just told you where I'm going," I replied. "And after tonight, I'll be staying with Jasmine until I leave for college in August." Her parents already agreed. My father stepped forward. "Talia, please. Let's go home and talk about this as a family." As a family, I repeated the words bitter on my tongue. "We haven't been a family in a long time, Dad." "Not for me." A small crowd had gathered at a discreet distance, watching our drama unfold. Among them were several of my teachers and classmates, their expressions concerned. "That's enough," my mother said sharply. "Get in the car now, or—" "Or what?" I challenged. "What will you do, Mom? Take away the love and support you never gave me in the first place?" She recoiled as if I'd slapped her. "You ungrateful, I raised you, fed you, clothed. You gave you a beautiful home. How dare you say we didn't love you? Love isn't just providing physical necessities," I said, keeping my voice level despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "Love is showing up. Love is paying attention. Love is making someone feel valued. And you failed at all of those things." My father put his hand on my mother's arm as she opened her mouth to retort. "Diana, stop." "She's right." She jerked away from him. "John, she's right," he repeated, his voice breaking. "We failed her. I've known it for years, but it was easier to pretend everything was fine. To tell myself that Talia was strong and independent and didn't need us the way Amelia did." Amelia made a small wounded sound. "So it's my fault. Everything is my fault." "No," I said, turning to her. "It's not your fault that they made you the center of their universe, but you've never once noticed or questioned it, have you? You've accepted every advantage, every preference, every special treatment as your due." I suddenly remembered all the times Amelia had watched me cook my own dinner while our parents took her out to restaurants. All the times she had shown off new clothes while I wore hand-me-downs. All the times she had monopolized conversations with her needs and wants while I sat silent and invisible. "You knew," I realized aloud. "You always knew they favored you, and you let it happen. You enjoyed it." Tears spilled down Amelia's cheeks. I didn't mean to." What a display came, a new voice cutting through our family drama. Mrs. Blackwell, the mother of Amelia's best friend, had approached with several other parents. "Talia, I always thought you were such a nice, sensible girl. To air your family's dirty laundry like this today of all days." "Actually," Mrs. Blackwell, another voice interjected, "I think Talia showed incredible courage." Mr. Henderson, my debate team coach, stepped forward. "Some truths need to be spoken, especially when they've been buried for too long." Several other parents and teachers murmured their agreement, forming a protective circle around me. "It's time to go," my mother announced, grabbing Amelia's arm and steering her back toward the car. "John, are you coming?" My father looked at me, then at my mother, indecision clear on his face. "You should go with them," I told him quietly. "They need you. I don't nod anymore. For a moment, I thought he might argue, might finally choose to stand with me, but then he nodded, his shoulders slumping in defeat, and walked back to the car. As they drove away, I watched the distance between us grow, feeling not sadness, but a strange sense of freedom. Jasmine appeared at my side, slipping her arm through mine. "My parents are waiting to take us to dinner," she said gently. "You ready?" I nodded, turning away from my family's retreating car toward the people who had chosen to support me, when my own family would not. For the first time in my life, I was making choices based on what I needed, not on what would cause the least disruption to my family's preferred dynamic. It felt terrifying and exhilarating all at once. As I walked away with Jasmine and her parents, I realized that the hardest part wasn't standing up for myself today. The hardest part would be continuing to do so tomorrow and the day after, and all the days that followed. But for the first time, I believed I was strong enough to do it. The days following graduation were simultaneously the most difficult and the most liberating of my life. Living with Jasmine's family showed me what healthy family dynamics look like. Her parents included me in dinner conversations, asked about my day, and genuinely listened to my answers. At first, it felt uncomfortable, like wearing shoes that didn't quite fit. I kept waiting for them to lose interest, to shift their attention elsewhere, but they never did. While I was adjusting to this new reality, the aftershocks of my graduation speech rippled through our community. According to Jasmine, my speech had gone viral on the local social media groups. Parents and students were debating whether I had been brave or inappropriate, whether my parents deserved public censure or privacy. Teachers from my school reached out to check on me, some sharing their own observations of the dynamics they'd witnessed over the years. My family remained silent. No calls, no texts, nothing for 5 days after graduation. I alternated between relief at the respite and a familiar ache that even now they couldn't be bothered to reach out. I threw myself into preparations for college, using the money I'd saved from tutoring to buy dorm essentials. Jasmine's parents insisted on treating me as if I were their own daughter. On the 6th day, my phone buzzed with a text from an unexpected source, Amelia. "Can we talk? Just you and me? Please." I stared at the message for a long time, emotions warring within me. Part of me wanted to ignore it to continue the clean break I'd started. But another part, the part that remembered the little sister who had once followed me around adoringly before our parents' differential treatment, created a gulf between us, wanted to hear what she had to say. After consulting with Jasmine, who encouraged me to set boundaries but remain open to genuine attempts at reconciliation, I agreed to meet Amelia at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. The Amelia who walked into the cafe the next day looked different from the confident, entitled sister I was used to seeing. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, instead of her usual perfect styling. She wore minimal makeup and her eyes were puffy as if she'd been crying. She slid into the booth across from me, hands wrapped around her cup, as if seeking warmth despite the summer heat outside. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice small. I nodded, waiting. This was her meeting, her chance to speak. "I don't even know where to start," she admitted after an awkward silence. "I've been thinking about everything you said at graduation, going back through memories, trying to see our childhood through your eyes." She swallowed hard. "And it's been awful, Talia. Truly awful to realize how different things were for us." I took a sip of my coffee, still silent. "At first I was angry," she continued. "I felt like you were blaming me for something I didn't do. But then I started remembering specific moments, like my 13th birthday when I got that expensive jewelry box and you got nothing even though your birthday is only 2 weeks after mine. Or how Mom and Dad came to every one of my dance recitals but missed your debate team finals." She shook her head. "I saw it happening and I never said anything. I just accepted it as normal. Because for you it was normal," I said finally. "You never knew anything different." "But I should have questioned it," she insisted. "I should have noticed how unfair it was." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was so caught up in being the center of attention that I never stopped to think about what that meant for you." Her remorse seemed genuine, which surprised me. I'd always assumed Amelia was as selfish and self-centered as our parents had encouraged her to be. "Mom and Dad have been fighting nonstop since graduation," she confided. "Dad keeps saying you were right, that we failed you. Mom keeps insisting you're just being dramatic and ungrateful." She looked down at her hands. "But last night, Dad pulled out the family photo albums. He showed Mom how in almost every picture I'm in the center, in the focus, while you're on the edge, or sometimes not there at all, because you were taking the picture." She wiped away a tear. "There's not a single photo of just you and them, Talia. Not one. but there are dozens of just me and them. I felt a lump forming in my throat. As much as I wanted to maintain my anger and distance, seeing Amelia truly grapple with the reality of our family dynamics affected me. "I don't expect you to forgive any of us," she said, "especially not me, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry, truly sorry, and I'm trying to do better to be better." As she spoke, my phone buzzed with a notification, a new email from my father. I glanced at the preview, Talia. "I know words are inadequate, but I need to try." I looked back at Amelia, who was watching me with a vulnerability I'd never seen in her before. "I'm not ready to forgive anyone yet," I said honestly. "But I appreciate you reaching out. It means something that you're willing to acknowledge what happened." She nodded, relief visible on her face. "Is there anything I can do to make things better between us?" I considered her question carefully. "Just keep doing what you're doing now," I finally answered. "Keep looking at our shared past with open eyes. Keep questioning the patterns we've all been stuck in. And maybe give me some space to figure out what kind of relationship I want with this family going forward." She reached across the table hesitantly, not quite touching my hand, but leaving hers palm up as an invitation. "Whatever you decide, I'm your sister. That won't change." For the first time in years, those words didn't feel like a burden or an obligation. They felt like a possibility, a relationship that might someday be rebuilt on more equal footing. After our meeting, I walked back to Jasmine's house, thinking about my father's email still waiting for me to open it. When I finally did, I found a lengthy message acknowledging years of favoritism, accepting responsibility without making excuses, and expressing a depth of regret I'd never heard from him before. He ended by writing, "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope someday I might earn the chance to try to be the father you always deserved." Notably absent was any message from my mother, who apparently was still convinced I was the one in the wrong. Some relationships would take longer to heal than others, if they ever did. As summer progressed, I focused on preparing for Princeton, working extra tutoring hours to save money, and slowly building a new relationship with my father and sister. My father began meeting me for coffee once a week, awkward conversations gradually giving way to more genuine exchanges. Amelia and I texted occasionally, mostly neutral topics, as we carefully felt our way toward a more authentic sisterhood. My mother remained distant, sending occasional stilted messages through my father, but never contacting me directly. Her inability to acknowledge her role in our family dysfunction was a reminder that some people might never change, and part of my healing process was accepting that reality. By August, I had established a new normal. I was still living with Jasmine's family, still keeping my family at a careful distance, while allowing for tentative steps toward reconciliation. I was learning to define relationships on my own terms, rather than accepting whatever scraps of attention others deigned to give me. Most importantly, I was learning to value myself independently of external validation, to recognize my worth, even when others failed to see it. 1 month before I was scheduled to leave for Princeton, I decided to host a small dinner gathering at Jasmine's house to thank those who'd supported me through the tumultuous summer. Her parents generously offered their backyard patio, and I spent days planning the menu and decorations, wanting to create a meaningful experience for the people who'd become my chosen family. I invited Jasmine and her parents, of course, along with Mrs. Rodriguez and Mr. Henderson, the teachers who'd been especially supportive. I hesitated over whether to include any biological family members, finally deciding to invite only Amelia, who had been making genuine efforts to rebuild our relationship. My father had been trying too, but I wasn't ready to have both siblings and parents in the same setting yet. My mother hadn't made any meaningful attempts at reconciliation, so that decision was easier. The evening of the dinner arrived warm and clear, with fairy lights strung across the patio, and flowers from Jasmine's mother's garden decorating the tables. I prepared most of the food myself with help from Jasmine's mom. As guests began arriving, I felt a surge of gratitude for these people who'd shown me what real support looked like. Amelia arrived last, nervous, but making an effort. She brought a small gift, a framed photo she'd found of just the two of us as very young children, before the favoritism had created its unbridgeable gap. We were both smiling, arms around each other, a reminder of what might have been and what might still be possible. The dinner was going beautifully when an unexpected knock came at the front door. Jasmine went to answer it and returned looking concerned. "Talia, it's your dad," she said quietly. I excused myself and went to the front door, where my father stood holding a large box. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said immediately. "I know I wasn't invited. but I wanted to give you this before you left for school." He held out the box. "It's a new laptop for college. I know you saved for one, but this has all the specifications Princeton recommends for engineering students." I stared at him, torn between appreciation for the thoughtful gift and wariness about its implications. "There's no strings attached," he added, seeming to read my thoughts. "You don't owe me anything for this. Not forgiveness, not time, nothing. I just wanted you to have the tools you need to succeed." "Thank you," I said, finally accepting the box. "Would you like to join us? Just for dessert?" The surprise and hope on his face made him look younger, more like the father I vaguely remembered from early childhood, before Amelia became the sole focus of his attention. "I'd like that very much," he said softly. As we walked to the backyard, I introduced him to everyone, including him as naturally as I could. Amelia looked shocked to see him, but recovered quickly, making room at the table. The conversation was initially stilted, but gradually relaxed as my father made genuine efforts to connect with my friends and mentors. After dessert, he asked if we could speak privately for a few minutes. We walked to a quiet corner of the garden, sitting on a stone bench beneath a flowering tree. "I want you to know I've been in therapy," he said without preamble. "Twice a week since your graduation. It's been hard confronting the ways I failed you, hearing from a professional how damaging that kind of favoritism can be." I nodded, unsure what to say. "Your mother still isn't ready to acknowledge her role," he continued. "She canceled after the first session and refuses to return. But I'm committed to doing this work whether she joins me or not." "For yourself," I asked. "For myself, yes," he admitted. "But also for you and Amelia. For any chance of having a real relationship with both my daughters." He looked at me directly. "I've learned that part of being a parent is continuing to show up even when it's difficult, even when you've made terrible mistakes. I stopped showing up for you a long time ago, Talia. I'm trying to change that now, even knowing it might be too late." His honesty touched something in me. I'd tried to keep protected. "I can't promise anything," I said carefully. "I still have a lot to work through." "I understand," he assured me. "I'm not asking for promises. I'm just asking for the chance to try to be better, to be the father you deserved all along." As we rejoined the group, I felt a subtle shift in my perception of him. Not forgiveness, exactly, but perhaps the beginning of a path that might eventually lead there. The weeks after that dinner were filled with final preparations for college. I worked with a therapist recommended by Jasmine's parents, processing years of emotional neglect and beginning the long journey toward healing. I learned that recovery wasn't linear, that some days I felt strong and empowered, while others brought back the familiar ache of being the less favored child. Through therapy, I began to understand that my parents' dysfunction wasn't a reflection of my worth, but of their own limitations. I learned that the favoritism likely had roots in my mother's own childhood experiences and my father's conflict avoidance. Understanding didn't excuse their behavior, but it helped me see them as flawed humans rather than the all-powerful figures of my childhood. I also discovered a community of others with similar experiences through an online support group for adult children of emotionally neglectful parents. Hearing their stories helped normalize my experiences and validate my feelings. More importantly, seeing those further along in their healing journey gave me hope for my own future. My relationship with Amelia continued to evolve in unexpected ways. Freed from the toxic dynamic our parents had created, we began to discover genuine common ground and even tentative affection. She visited Princeton with me during orientation, helping me set up my dorm room and introducing herself to my roommate as my sister, with a pride that felt new and genuine. My father maintained weekly contact, respecting my boundaries while consistently demonstrating his commitment to change. He attended family therapy sessions with Amelia, working to rebuild their relationship on healthier terms as well. My mother remained distant, though she did send a terse note acknowledging that perhaps she'd been too harsh and suggesting we might talk over Thanksgiving break. It wasn't an apology, but it was more concession than I'd ever received from her before. I decided to take it as a small positive sign while keeping my expectations realistic. As summer drew to a close and my departure for college approached, I organized another small gathering this time, including both my father and Amelia. As we sat together on Jasmine's patio sharing a meal and tentative laughter, I realized how far we had all come in just a few months. Today, as I prepare to leave for Princeton tomorrow, I find myself reflecting on the journey that brought me here. Standing on that graduation stage, exposing 22 years of favoritism and family dysfunction, was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it was also the most necessary. I am no longer the invisible daughter, the one who achieves in silence, while craving recognition that never comes. I am no longer the understanding one who accepts less than she deserves. I am Talia, visible and valued, not because others finally see me, but because I finally had the courage to see myself. The road to healing isn't complete, and perhaps it never will be. Some wounds leave permanent scars, but I've learned that scars can be marks of strength as well as pain reminders of battles fought and survived. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever wondered why you weren't enough to be loved equally, please know this: your worth isn't determined by others' inability to see it. You deserve to be valued, to be prioritized, to be loved, without having to earn it. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is to speak your truth, even when others aren't ready to hear it. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against family members who treated you unfairly? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that finding your voice is just the beginning of reclaiming your power. I'm sending strength to all of you still fighting to be seen.